Welcome to the Deep Dive. You ready to explore something pretty amazing?
Always. What have we got today?
Today, we're diving into the world of oncolytic viruses.
Oh, cool. You mean using viruses to actually fight cancer?
That's exactly it.
I've heard little bits about this, but never really dug in.
It's pretty mind-blowing stuff. Oncolytic viruses, or OVs, are like these tiny little assassins targeting tumor cells.
So instead of making us sick, these viruses could actually help us get better.
That's the idea.
I mean, that just sounds like science fiction. But I guess it's real, right?
Oh, it's definitely real science, but it's still early days, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense. So lots of potential, but still a lot to figure out.
Exactly. We've got a ton of research to go through today, and there's a lot of excitement around it. But it's important to remember that a lot of what we're looking at is based on individual case studies, what they call N1 studies.
Okay, so not like huge clinical trials or anything yet.
Right. So we'll definitely explore the possibilities, but we'll also keep in mind that more research is needed to really understand the full picture. Like, who will respond best to this type of treatment and what specific types of cancer it might be most effective against.
Makes sense. So we're diving into a world of potential, but with a healthy dose of scientific caution.
Exactly. So how about we start with the basics? How do these microscopic warriors actually work? What do they do?
Well, think of it like a double whammy punch against cancer.
Oh, I like where this is going. Lay it on me.
Okay, so first, they infect the tumor cells, right?
Right.
Then they replicate inside those cells, and eventually they cause the cells to burst.
So they basically make the cancer cells explode.
Basically, it's like a microscopic explosion.
Whoa, okay, that's pretty intense. That's the first punch. What's the second?
The second punch is all about boosting the body's own defenses.
Okay, so how does that work?
Well, OVs can actually alert the immune system to the presence of the cancer.
So they're like calling in reinforcements.
Exactly. They're like tiny beacons signaling, hey, there's a problem here, come and fight. And that triggers a stronger, more targeted immune response against the cancer.
That's amazing. So they're attacking the tumor directly and then bringing in the body's own defenses to help fight it off.
Pretty cool.
Super cool.
Yeah.
But how do we make sure they're attacking the right cells? We don't want them going after healthy cells too, right?
That's the million-dollar question. And that's where things get really interesting. Scientists are working on engineering these viruses to be super specific, like giving them a GPS to find their target.
So we're talking about programming these viruses to recognize specific markers found only on cancer cells.
Precisely. It's like giving them a key to unlock the door of the cancer cell, leaving healthy cells unharmed.
That's incredible. Okay, so we've got these tiny assassins that attack cancer cells directly and then call in the immune system for backup. And we can program them to be super specific about which cells they target. Is there like a real-world example of this in action?
Absolutely. There's a therapy called talimogene laherparepvec, or TVEC.
TVEC, okay.
It was actually the first FDA-approved oncolytic virus therapy.
Wow, really? So this is already being used to treat people?
Yep. It's used to treat melanoma, a type of skin cancer, and it's a great example of this two-pronged attack in action.
So TVEC is proof that this technology can work. That's amazing. But I'm guessing TVEC is just the beginning, right?
Oh, you're absolutely right. We're talking about a whole arsenal of different viruses that are being studied, each with its own unique strengths and potential targets.
Okay, spill the beans. What other kinds of viruses are we talking about here?
Well, there are adenoviruses, for example. They're really good at infecting cells, which makes them great for delivering therapeutic genes right into the tumor.
Like tiny Trojan horses sneaking in.
Exactly. Then you've got parvoviruses. They're known for activating processes within cancer cells that basically lead to those cells self-destructing.
Wait, so they're turning the enemy's weapons against them? That's pretty brilliant. What else?
Then there are vaccinia which you might recognize because they're the same type of virus used in the smallpox vaccine.
Interesting.
Yeah, these guys can stimulate a really powerful immune response against tumors.
So we're talking about repurposing an old foe to fight a new one. What other viruses are in this arsenal?
Let's see, we've got reoviruses, which are really interesting because they have this affinity for cells with a specific mutation called the RAS gene.
The RAS gene. Okay.
And that mutation is found in a lot of different cancers. So reoviruses have the potential to be effective against a wide range of cancers.
So they're like snipers targeting specific types of cancer cells.
That's a great way to put it. And one more I want to mention is herpes simplex virus, or HSV.
Herpes, seriously.
Yeah, some strains of HSV can infect and kill tumor cells really quickly, which triggers a strong immune response against the cancer.
Wow, we've got quite the lineup of viral warriors here.
Yeah.
So with all these different viruses and their potential, where do we go from here?
Well, that's where things get even more interesting and challenging.
We've just scratched the surface of this whole oncolytic virus thing, and it's already blowing my mind.
Right.
But you mentioned challenges. What are some of the hurdles we still need to overcome with this?
Well, one of the biggest challenges is just making sure these viruses actually hit their target.
You mean making sure they actually attack the cancer cells and not healthy cells?
Exactly. Precision is key in this microscopic battle. We want those viruses to be expert marksmen, taking out the bad guys and leaving the innocent bystanders unharmed.
I like that analogy.
And then there's another big challenge, the body's own defense system.
What do you mean?
Sometimes the immune system sees these OVs as invaders and tries to eliminate them before they can do their job.
Oh, so it's like our own security system is turning against us.
Exactly. It can be frustrating, but researchers are working on ways to outsmart this immune response.
How are they doing that?
One approach is through genetic engineering.
So tweaking the viruses themselves.
Yep. They're tweaking them to make them less recognizable to the immune system, like giving them a disguise so they can slip past the body's defenses.
Sneaky.
And another approach is using combination therapies.
So using OVs alongside other treatments.
Exactly. Pairing them with things like chemo, radiotherapy, or immune checkpoint inhibitors can really boost their effectiveness. It's like a multi-pronged attack, weakening the cancer from different angles.
So it's all about finding the right combination, the right team of warriors to deliver that knockout punch. But with all these complexities, how are scientists even studying this?
One way is through something called xenografts.
Xenografts, I've heard of those.
Yeah. It basically involves implanting human tumor cells into mice.
So creating a miniature battlefield within a living organism.
Precisely. This allows researchers to study human cancer in a living model, It gives them valuable insights into how OVs behave in a complex biological environment.
So it's not just about how effective the virus is at killing cancer cells in a petri dish, but how it works within the body.
Right. And how the body responds to the virus as a whole.
Makes sense. So with all this research going on, are there any specific cancers where OVs are looking particularly promising?
There are. One area that's generating a lot of excitement is pancreatic cancer.
Oh, wow. Pancreatic cancer. That's one of the toughest ones to treat, right?
It is, but initial results with OVs have been pretty encouraging. There was one study where they administered reovirus directly into the abdominal cavity, which is where pancreatic cancer often spreads, in hamsters. And the results were promising. The virus was effective in controlling the spread of cancer cells in that area.
Wait, so you're telling me a virus could help control the spread of one of the most difficult cancers to treat?
It's definitely showing potential.
Yeah.
And it's not just reoviruses. Measles viruses, specifically a modified strain, have also shown the ability to actually shrink pancreatic tumors in mice.
Measles. Like the childhood disease.
Yep. And there's more. Another virus, the myxoma virus, has shown some success both in the lab and in living organisms. It's been shown to prolong the survival of mice with pancreatic cancer, especially when combined with chemotherapy.
So combination therapies seem to be a key theme here.
They definitely seem to boost the effectiveness of the OVs.
Interesting. So we've got pancreatic cancer. What other cancers are showing promise?
Melanoma is another one.
Melanoma, that's skin cancer, right? I know they can be pretty aggressive.
It can be, but the vaccinia virus, the one used in the smallpox vaccine, has shown real promise in treating it. Researchers have been able to modify it to basically supercharge the immune system, giving it the tools to fight melanoma more effectively.
Wow. So we're taking a virus that was used to eradicate one disease and using it to potentially treat another. That's wild.
It is. And there are other melanoma-fighting viruses in the pipeline, too, like the herpes simplex virus or HSV.
HSV, that's another one that seems surprising.
Right. But one version of it, called TVEC, has already been approved by the FDA for treating melanoma. And the clinical trials for TVEC have been really impressive. The virus effectively kills cancer cells, leading to tumor shrinkage and increased survival rates.
TVEC, that's that FDA-approved therapy we talked about earlier, right?
That's the one. But there's another HSV variant being studied called HF10.
HF10, okay.
Yeah.
What's special about that one?
Well, it not only kills melanoma cells directly, but it also triggers a wider immune response. So it's like rallying the body's defenses to fight melanoma on a larger scale.
A systemic effect.
Exactly. In studies with mice, they found that even tumors that weren't directly injected with the virus shrunk. That suggests a really powerful systemic effect.
Wow, so it's like the virus is setting off an alarm throughout the body, alerting the immune system to the presence of cancer everywhere.
Pretty much. And there are even more contenders in the fight against melanoma, too, like Coxsackie virus A21. It's shown some promising results in preclinical studies, and there's actually a commercial version of it called CVA21.
Commercial version.
Yeah, and it's been in clinical trials, it was well tolerated by patients, showed complete responses in some cases, and had an acceptable safety profile.
So it seems like we're making real progress in tackling melanoma with oncolytic viruses. What about other types of cancer?
Breast cancer is another area where oncolytic virotherapy is showing a lot of potential.
Really? I haven't heard much about that.
The research is still ongoing, but there are some fascinating findings. Modified adenoviruses, for example, have shown increased survival rates and anti-tumor effects in mice with breast cancer.
So it's like scientists are customizing these viruses, tweaking their genetic code to make them more effective against specific cancers.
Exactly. Although not all attempts have been successful. There was one adenovirus, ONYX15, that showed some initial promise but was ultimately halted because it didn't have enough clinical activity.
So even with all this potential, it's not always a straight shot to success.
You got it.
So besides ONYX15, what other OVs are looking good for breast cancer?
One exciting one is the Maraba virus. There's a variant of it called MG1 that was specifically engineered to be highly effective against cancer cells while having minimal impact on healthy cells.
So that precision targeting again.
Yep, and in trials, it's shown impressive results in actually preventing the spread of breast cancer. Plus, it has a good safety profile.
That's great. Any others?
There are two more I'd mention. There's the vaccinia virus, which replicates selectively in breast cancer cells and is well tolerated by the body.
Okay.
And then there's an RNA virus called polariorip, or reolysin, which has shown safety and effectiveness in killing breast cancer cells.
Wow, so many different viruses are being tested against breast cancer. It's amazing to see how each one has its unique strengths, but it's making me realize that oncolytic viruses are like a complex puzzle. We've talked about the viruses themselves, but what about getting them to the right place in the body?
You're right, delivery is a big challenge.
Yeah, I mean, we have these amazing microscopic assassins, but we need to figure out the best way to deliver them to the battlefield.
Exactly. Intravenous administration, or injecting the virus directly into the bloodstream, is one method, but it's not always the most effective. Sometimes OVs need to be delivered directly to the tumor site, and that can be tricky.
I bet, especially with solid tumors.
Right.
It's not just about getting the viruses there, it's about making sure they can actually get inside the tumor and do their job.
You're getting it. It's like a siege. Scientists are exploring strategies to help OVs breach the tumor's defenses.
How are they doing that?
One approach is to genetically engineer them to express molecules that can break down the tumor's defenses.
So it's like giving them battering rams to break through those defenses.
Exactly. Some oncolytic adenoviruses, for example, have been modified to express molecules like relaxin and hyaluronidase, which can disrupt the tumor structure and make it more permeable.
That's really clever. Any other strategies they're looking at?
Another exciting approach is using nanoparticles as delivery vehicles.
Nanoparticles.
Yeah. Imagine tiny capsules carrying the OVs directly to the tumor. And these capsules can actually shield the virus from the body's immune system.
That sounds pretty high-tech, like a microscopic special ops mission.
It kind of is.
But what about safety? Injecting viruses into the body, even modified ones, sounds kind of risky.
Of course, safety is always a top priority.
But are there side effects?
Well, thankfully, most of the clinical trials have shown that OVs are generally well tolerated. Most side effects are pretty mild to moderate.
Okay, that's good to hear. What kind of side effects are we talking about?
The most common ones are flu-like symptoms. Things like fever, chills, fatigue, muscle aches. Some people might also experience some redness, swelling, or pain at the injection site.
That makes sense. But are there ever any serious complications?
In rarer cases, yes. But it really depends on the type of virus being used and the patient's overall health. Some potential risks include inflammation of the brain or other organs, blood clotting problems, and allergic reactions.
So careful monitoring by doctors is essential.
Absolutely.
It's a balancing act, weighing the potential benefits against the potential risks. But overall, it seems like oncolytic viruses have the potential to revolutionize cancer treatment.
I think so too. The future of cancer treatment could be incredibly precise and personalized thanks to these tiny but mighty viruses.
It really does seem like it. But I'm realizing we haven't talked about all types of cancer. I mean, what about something like liver cancer? Is there potential for OVs to work there?
That's a great question. Liver cancer is a big problem, and yeah, the current treatments, they have limitations, but the good news is oncolytic virotherapy is showing some real promise there too.
That's great to hear. So which viruses are we talking about here? What's showing promise in liver cancer?
Well, you're probably not going to be surprised to hear that adenoviruses are leading the charge here. They've got this natural affinity for liver cells, which makes them a good fit for targeting a type of liver cancer called hepatocellular carcinoma, or HCC.
HCC, yeah.
Yeah, it's like they already have a roadmap to the liver,
They know exactly where to go.
Exactly. And scientists are modifying them to be even more effective against HCC. Like, there was this one study where they combined an adenovirus with specific promoters, and those promoters were able to trigger programmed cell death, or apoptosis, in the HCC cells.
Apoptosis, that's basically cell suicide, right?
Right. And the results were really impressive. They saw significant tumor shrinkage and improved survival rates in mice.
It's like they're reprogramming the cancer cells to self-destruct.
That's amazing. So are there other adenoviruses being studied for liver cancer?
Oh yeah, there's one called ZD55. It was engineered to overcome the resistance of HCC cells to a molecule called TRAIL.
TRAIL. Okay, and what does that do?
TRAIL plays a key role in triggering cell death. But some cancer cells have figured out ways to evade it, to basically become resistant to it. So ZD55 was designed to get around that resistance. When they combine ZD55 with TRAIL, it enhances its effectiveness in killing those resistant HCC cells. So it's like finding a way to unlock that cell death pathway and force those cancer cells to succumb. That's incredible. Besides adenoviruses, are any other viruses showing potential against liver cancer?
There are. Vaccinia virus is another contender. Remember that JX594 variant we talked about earlier with melanoma?
Yes.
Well, it's also showing some exciting results in preclinical studies for liver cancer, too. In studies involving rabbits, JX594 was able to eradicate both liver tumors and lung metastases.
So it's like a multi-target missile, taking out cancer wherever it hides. What about the herpes simplex virus? Any progress there with liver cancer?
Definitely. Researchers have developed a modified HSV called LD0-GFP. It's more selective for liver cells and has shown great results in preclinical studies.
What kind of results?
Well, they found that LD0-GFP was able to induce cell death in liver cancer cells, and it also alerted the immune system to the presence of cancer.
So it's not only killing cancer cells directly, but it's also calling in those reinforcements from the immune system.
You got it. It really highlights the power of those combination therapies.
Using OVs to prime the immune system for an even stronger attack.
Exactly.
This is also incredible. It's like oncolytic viruses are opening up all these new possibilities in the fight against cancer.
Yeah.
It's giving us hope in areas where traditional treatments haven't been as successful.
I agree. It's definitely a reason to be optimistic.
But as exciting as all of this is, we do need to acknowledge that oncolytic virotherapy still faces some challenges, right?
Of course. There's still a lot to learn.
Like what?
Well, we've talked about the need for precise targeting, for finding ways to overcome that immune response, and for developing effective delivery methods. These are all areas where ongoing research is so important.
It's like we're just starting to understand the potential of these viruses.
Yeah, and we need to remember that while the potential is huge, research is still ongoing. It's not like a magic bullet, it's one piece of the puzzle in the fight against cancer.
Right, and we don't want to overhype it.
Exactly.
But it definitely has the potential to be a real game changer in cancer treatment.
Yeah.
I'm so excited to see what the future holds for this field.
Me too.
Well, that about wraps up our deep dive into the world of oncolytic viruses. It's been an incredible journey. We've learned so much, and it's given us a renewed sense of hope in the fight against cancer. Thanks for joining us.
It's been my pleasure.
Until next time, fellow knowledge seekers, stay curious.